Okay, so last video of this series, and I want to use this to address a problem because I'm not oblivious to the problem. Many of you will hopefully have realized this for yourselves, but I thought it best to articulate it because I have a solution for it, and I think it's quite a good one. So the problem is overwhelm. I have taken what is effectively over 8 years of obsessive learning, and I've distilled it into 4 weeks of bite-size, high-level summary, key point type posts covering the 5 pillars of metabolic health: nutrition, movement, sleep, light exposure, and grounding. That is a lot of ground to cover, and you cannot approach and attack them all at once. There's simply too much there. And in fact, my own journey reflected this. I didn't start with all 5. I started with nutrition. That was the thing that led me into discovering what metabolic health is to begin with. I didn't know what metabolic health was. I had to learn about that. And as my journey through nutrition unfolded, I started to get exposed to and learn about the other aspects of metabolic health, the other pillars, not all at once, more or less one at a time as they crossed my path and as I was more open to engaging with them, because I had started to overcome some of my own overwhelm, some of my own cognitive dissonance. And so I have an appreciation for the fact that I have probably, if I was asking you to take the totality of everything that I've covered in the last 4 weeks and say, right, you have the information now, off you go, do your thing, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're not really going to know where to start, and I would be doing you a disservice. But I'm not asking you to do that. I recognize that overwhelm is already something that our community, the special needs SEND caregiver community, struggles with. We're fighting EHCPs, we're fighting with councils, we're fighting with provision placement, we're fighting to get our children the resource provision and understanding that they need to give them the best opportunities possible. I'm not adding to that. I'm trying to give you something that will help you on that mission, because it helps empower you with additional capacity to show up and be consistent in the things that you need to show up and be consistent in. So, I have created a concept that I call logical entry gateways. And it is a little something like this. What that image is showing is that each pillar of metabolic health is essentially a gateway to begin a journey on. That journey is up a mountain. I like the analogy of a mountain because it's aiming up. It's aiming for the higher purpose, the higher point. And I think that is correct in this instance. I think it is an apt analogy of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you to aim up, trying to get you to improve your metabolic health and get the journey up a mountain. I mean, even in our oldest religious texts, there's something about a journey up a mountain and reaching the pinnacle of a mountain that brings enlightenment, that brings improvement, etc. So that's the reason I chose the mountain. But the point of this concept, this logical entry gateway concept, is that I've covered 5 foundational pillars of metabolic health. You only need one to be your entry point. The rest, if you look at that image again, the rest crisscross the paths of the others along the journey, and that is exactly what I encountered. I crisscrossed across the other metabolic pillars as I was learning about nutrition and as I was getting more up to speed with what metabolic health is and what it isn't. The other pillars got added to the journey. I didn't have to go right back to square one. I didn't have to start the journey again. It was things that were added to as my understanding, as my capacity for it increased and improved. And that is what it's going to be like for you. So, of the 5 pillars that I've covered over the last 4 weeks, you will know that there's a particular pillar or a particular aspect of one of the pillars that really resonates with you, the thing that really interests you, intrigues you, and makes you want to try that. That is your logical entry gateway. That is the thing that you start with, and that is the way into this journey. So you pick up on that particular metabolic health pillar and you start to work on that. And you're not trying to get everything perfect overnight. You're trying to learn a little bit about it and tweak your lifestyle in small, sustainable increments. It's a game of percentages. And what I mean by that is the aim is not to be perfect. The aim is to be 1% better today than what you were yesterday. And tomorrow you repeat that. Tomorrow you want to be 1% better than what you were today. And if you can do that consistently, not perfectly, but consistently, over time, that adds up to massive wins, and it's sustainable and it's not overwhelming. It is something that you can achieve. And as you benefit from it, as your capacity improves, as your metabolic health and in turn your mental health improves, you will feel the difference and you will be able to add the additional pillars in where it makes sense to along your journey. That is the logical entry gateway concept. This is a journey. It is something that you do in small, sustainable increments, and you add the other pillars where it makes sense to along that journey, because those paths cross and there are natural intersections where you will have that aha, that eureka moment where suddenly the concept, the pillar that didn't make sense to you before, now does. So that is what I want to leave you with. That is the end of my series. I hope that you have found it helpful. I encourage you to revisit all the posts, to revisit the 5 pillars, to find your logical entry gateway, and to make a start with small, sustainable 1% incremental changes in trying to improve that particular aspect of your metabolic health, because it is going to build your capacity to face up to the stress of special needs caregiving. It's going to build your capacity to show up and front up and be who you need to be for the loved ones in your care. And it's going to make sure that you're able to do that for longer than if you were neglecting your health and to suddenly face health decline. If you want to DM me to find out more, ask questions, I'm absolutely open to that. I will share the information and the resources that I have freely. I'm not trying to sell you anything. But I wish you well, and I'm happy to pick up on any questions that you may have.